Hello, Soraya Bastian here, and you are watching Beyond Breath TV, the place to be to overcome your husband's infidelity and create a beautiful marriage. Today, I want to talk to you about a sensitive topic that married women who have suffered the heartache of infidelity in their marriage usually end up asking themselves. Can you guess what it is? As your brain does a little swirl of the million topics this could be, let me tell you a story that may give you a hint. Years ago, I was sitting in my therapist's office, and after spilling the play-by-play of my week, relieving myself of the word vomit I'd been carrying around with me for the 7 days between sessions, my therapist looked at me and told me I may be dealing with a narcissist. I went home and Googled for hours, reading articles and blog posts, and watched YouTube video after YouTube video on the topic. And oddly enough, even though I now knew more than I ever thought I'd know on the subject of narcissism, I actually found myself confused. While simultaneously knowing this label, this diagnosis, I also felt hopeful. Like somehow knowing that he fit the description for a narcissist meant we could get over this, heal this, fix this, repair our marriage. Like, because it was textbook, there had to be an answer. Did I give you enough information to know what I would like to speak to you about today? Well, if you guessed narcissism, you're right. And to be more specific traits of a narcissist when it comes to infidelity. And perhaps more importantly, I want to talk to you about what knowing this information actually means and how it may or may not serve you when it comes to healing your marriage after infidelity. To get started, I want to reiterate that there are different personalities and behaviors that come out in people according to their situations. And that what I have to share today does not mean in any way that you should be able to define or diagnose a narcissistic personality. So let's get to it. The first trait of a narcissist I would like to point out to you is what we call self-absorption. This means that one's feelings, ideas, and activities trump another's. For example, at the time one of my clients got married, she had been teaching fitness classes at the local gym. She was very well known and had a large following, and she loved doing what she did. However, within months of her wedding day, she and her husband were already experiencing dis-ease when it came to her continuing to teach her classes. Her husband did not like the idea that other men were at the gym and preferred for her to stop teaching her classes. He claimed she didn't need the extra income now that they were married, and that people who attend the gym are usually looking for one thing: affairs. He believed that if she continued to participate in teaching her classes, that she was asking for an affair. My client felt torn. She disagreed completely with her husband on his views of what she did, but to keep the peace, she decided it was best to quit. So let's circle back to that first trait we defined, which was self-absorption. Can you see through this simple example that perhaps his feelings were much more important than hers? The second trait I want to introduce you to today is what we call grandiosity. When we speak of grandiosity as a narcissistic behavior, we're talking about one who has to look and be the best at everything. A person who cannot be outwon. Years ago, one of my clients shared with me an experience she had within this topic. Her husband was an avid cycler. There are many apps that sing to others that allow for competitiveness these days. But my client explained to me that her husband took it over the top. He had to be the leader on the leaderboard. And if anybody beat him, he would accuse them of cheating or go out and ride the specific ride to ensure that he was number one. Now, these examples might seem a little out there, but if you have ever experienced this type of behavior, it probably makes sense to you. In this scenario, her husband would seem to fit the behavioral type of grandiosity. The third type of behavior I wish to introduce you to is called gaslighting. If you've been in the arena of betrayal trauma and sexual addiction for a long time, I'm sure you have heard this term. The term actually comes from a movie where a husband manipulates his wife to make her think that she's actually losing her sense of reality so that he can commit her to a mental institution and steal her inheritance. This is very common in a situation where a couple is dealing with infidelity, where the wife will find proof or evidence of something that her husband has done and bring it to him with a desire to understand. In turn, she is invited to believe that everything is fine, that the evidence means nothing, and that it is all in her head, which then encourages her to question herself and her intuition. Finally, the fourth and final trait I want to introduce you to today is jealousy. One of my clients was married to a man who was diagnosed with sexual anorexia. And in her case, her husband found it easier to be sexual with strangers or to engage in one-night stands rather than attempt to be close or connected with her. She told me a situation where she walked into a small mom and pop shop and her husband caught the man at the counter looking her up and down. She said that when she got in the car, her husband was livid that a man would look at her that way and was angry at her for the man's gaze. Listen, I understand that some of these examples can feel a little icky or even cause you to be triggered, but I believe it's important and helpful to use specific examples to help you see what it might be. Also, I believe it is important to note that not everyone who exhibits these traits is a narcissist. So I have a question for you now, and my intention of asking is purely to cause curiosity within yourself. Let's say that your husband has been unfaithful and holds many of the narcissistic qualities we've spoken of today. Does knowing this information help you in any way when it comes to finding the clarity you need to rebuild your marriage or the clarity that you need to move beyond it? Does knowing your husband is a narcissist make it easy for you to be done? Make it easy for you to walk away? Do his red flag behaviors not cause enough alarm to give you the confidence to pack your bags and be gone? I'm gonna guess that you just shook your head no. Knowing that your husband may hold some of the qualities of narcissism means nothing at the end of the day. So instead of spending your time and energy researching what is wrong with him and hoping he'll change, why don't we ask a different, perhaps more difficult question? Why, if you have solid evidence of his narcissism, are you still here? This question isn't posed as a negative or demeaning question, but a sincere opportunity to have a conversation with yourself. I would like to offer you something now that might be hard to hear. If your husband is truly a narcissist, you will not be able to see that with clarity until you heal the emotional trauma that is fogging up your view. If your husband is not a narcissist, you will not be able to see that with clarity until you heal the emotional trauma that is fogging up your view. Let me explain. After you experience emotional trauma, there is little space left for learning, understanding, and comprehension. Because of the constant state of tension and hyperarousal you sustain, it leaves you unable to concentrate, pay attention, and retain and recall information. So words like narcissism, gaslighting, manipulation provide more fear to your body. These words do nothing but help maintain the freeze mode of uncertainty, panic, and anxiety. One of my clients said she read more on the topic of infidelity, narcissism, emotional affairs, and sexual addiction than she read for her entire master's degree program. She said she could have written her own 1,000-page book on this topic, and yet knowing all that she did nothing to help her heal her marriage because she was stuck behind the walls of her emotional trauma. To sum this all up, you can understand the traits of a narcissistic man, and perhaps your husband falls into that category. But now what? Because of the severe attention the emotional trauma is demanding of your mind and your body, merely to survive, you're left questioning what to do with this information. And in the end, if you truly want to uncover the veil that is blocking your view and your understanding, you have to clear your emotional trauma. Now, I would love to hear from you. In the comments below, please share with me if you have been given the suggestion that you're dealing with a narcissist and what it did to aid in your healing process. I can't wait to read your answers. And then be sure to head over to SorayaBastian.com and subscribe to become a Beyond Breath Insider. This is where you'll gain instant access to an awesome training where I share the secrets to creating a marriage full of passion, intimacy, and excitement after your husband's infidelity, as well as some exclusive content, some special giveaways, and some personal updates from me that I don't share anywhere else. Thank you for joining me today. I love you. Bye-bye.